Japan's economy is really at a fascinating point right now. It's recovering, sure, but it's also facing some serious challenges from abroad. Today, we're going to break down the official government report that gives us the inside scoop on exactly where things stand. Okay, let's get into it.
Hello, this is the Japanese Economic Review Channel. We are digging deep into the official monthly economic report for January 2026, straight from the source, to give you a clear, no-nonsense look at what's really shaping Japan's economy today.
So, right out of the gate, the Cabinet Office gives us the headline, "The economy is in a moderate recovery." But here's the catch, that little phrase at the end, "though impacted by U.S. trade policy." That single line is absolutely key to understanding the whole picture, so let's unpack what that really means.
So what does a moderate recovery actually feel like? What are we seeing on the ground? Let's peel back the layers on that headline and look at the core numbers to see where the real bright spots are, and of course, where the concerns are hiding.
Okay, so when you first glance at this table, you're probably thinking, all right, a lot of stable here. Private consumption, investment, jobs, they're all holding steady, which is definitely good news. But hang on, the real story, the big change, is right there in that bottom row. Look at that. The trade balance has swung from a deficit to largely balanced. For an export-driven economy like Japan's, that is a huge deal. It's probably the single biggest piece of good news in this whole report.
Now, even with that great news on the trade front, the report is pretty clear. The real engine of this recovery isn't overseas. It's right here at home. It's a domestic story. So let's pop the hood and see what's really driving things forward.
And yeah, you can see right away the foundation looks pretty solid. I mean, you've got people starting to spend again, which is so crucial. At the same time, businesses are investing in their own future, and the job market is getting better. Throw in firm public investment, and you've got these strong pillars holding up the entire recovery.
But, it's never that simple, is it? It's not a perfect picture. The report does flag one specific area of concern here at home, and that's housing construction. It's weakening. Now, it's just one data point, but it's like a small crack in an otherwise solid foundation. Definitely something we need to keep an eye on.
That little crack in the housing market, well, it kind of hints at some bigger challenges on the horizon. Despite all this good stuff happening domestically, the economy is basically sealing straight into some pretty serious headwinds, coming from both inside and out.
And these pressures are hitting from two sides. For businesses, especially big ones like in the auto industry, that U.S. trade policy we mentioned is really starting to bite. Profits are stalling out. Meanwhile, for you, me, the average person, prices are going up, and that squeezes household budgets. It's a real threat to all the progress we've seen in consumer spending.
And believe me, this pressure on businesses isn't just a theory. You can see it in the hard numbers. Corporate bankruptcies shot up to 928 in December. To put that into perspective, that's a big jump from just 778 the month before. That's a clear and, frankly, a worrying sign of stress.
So when you boil it all down, what are the big worries keeping policymakers up at night? Well, the report zeroes in on these three main risks. What happens with prices here at home, the whole U.S. trade situation, and just the wild, unpredictable nature of global financial markets. It's kind of a perfect storm of risks that really defines the challenge ahead.
Okay, so you've got a decent domestic engine, but a storm brewing outside. What's the game plan? What are the government and the Bank of Japan actually doing about all this? Let's take a look at their policy response.
The government's whole strategy is built around this idea they call responsible active fiscal policy. Yeah, it sounds a little bit jargony, right? But the idea behind it is pretty simple. Use government spending to fuel growth, but do it smartly, without racking up a mountain of irresponsible debt. It's a real tightrope walk.
And here's how that philosophy breaks down in the real world. It's basically a three-step package. First, you play defense, protect people's wallets from rising prices. Then, you go on offense. You invest in the stuff that's going to drive growth down the road. And finally, you think strategically. You build up Japan's overall national and diplomatic power. You can see how they're trying to fix today's problems while also planning for tomorrow.
Of course, the government isn't in this alone. The Bank of Japan is the other massive piece of the puzzle. For now, they're holding interest rates steady. Their ultimate goal is to kickstart that virtuous cycle we hear so much about, where wages and prices rise together in a healthy way. And the key takeaway here is they're making it clear they're working hand in glove with the government to make it happen. So, we've looked at the data, we've looked at the headwinds, and we've looked at the game plan. Where does all of this leave us? Well, as the slide says, it really all comes down to a very delicate balance.
And this really just sums up the whole story perfectly, doesn't it? You can think of the domestic economy as this sturdy ship. It's powered by consumers and businesses getting back on their feet.
But that ship is sailing through some very, very stormy international seas right now, thanks to all these external pressures.
Which of course brings us to the fundamental question we're all left with. We know the foundation at home is solid, but we also know the risks from abroad are real and they seem to be growing. So the big question is, will the current playbook be enough to navigate these challenges and actually secure stable growth? Honestly, that is the billion-yen question for the coming months.
Thank you for watching the Japanese Economic Review. We look forward to having you with us again.